Well, on behalf of the Greater Medina Chamber of Commerce, I'm Larry Johns, and I'd like to welcome Congressman Bob Gibbs with us today. And thanks for coming out today,
Glad to be
taking
here,
time out of
Larry.
your busy
Good to see ya.
schedule. I'll read a little bit of his background and his biography, and then we'll learn more about the congressman and the current election and what he would like to do if reelected in the coming term. So a little background about Congressman Bob Gibbs. He's a small business owner, founding Hidden Hollow Farms in 1976 and raising hogs in Holmes County, Ohio. He began advocating for Ohio agriculture in 1985 as a member of the Ohio Farm Bureau Federation Board of Trustees, and starting in 1999, served as Ohio Farm Bureau President for 2 terms. In 2010, Gibbs was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives, winning re-election in 2012 and 2014. He previously served in the Ohio House and Ohio Senate. In both the State House and Congress, Bob has been and continues to be a strong advocate for private property rights and regulatory and tax reform. During this time, Bob has been recognized for his leadership by winning several prestigious awards, including Guardian of Small Business Award, Legislator of the Year Award from the Ohio Restaurant Association, and Legislator of the Year Award from Agricultural Retailers Association. Bob resides in Lakeville, Ohio, and has been married to his wife, Jody, since 1976, with whom he has 3 adult children. So thanks for coming out today.
Yeah, glad to be here.
So for the viewers at home, let's just learn a little bit more about yourself, your background, and then what you plan to do in the future if you're reelected.
My background is agriculture. I'm actually a city kid that grew up in the city, not just north of here, in the suburbs of Cleveland, and got involved in agriculture and bought the first farm in 1975, and then I got involved in Farm Bureau. And I say to people, if you don't like where I'm at, blame Farm Bureau.
Oh.
But that's where I really got the public policy
But you
experience.
started out in the city and then went and
I
bought
kind
a
of
farm.
opposite most people. I was on the Farm Bureau State Board. I was county president. I got elected to the state board, so I was on the state board for about 2 decades, 20 years, and president for a couple of years. And then I ran for state rep when the redistricting happened in '03, and so I served 6 years in the House and 2 years in the state Senate, and I ran for Congress because I was upset about what was going on in Congress in 2010. That's when the Great Recession, as they say, happened,
Right.
and Obamacare was passed, and the deficit spending went up to $1.5 trillion, and so I ran against my incumbent congressman. That was the old 18th Congressional District,
Right.
and I won. And so I've been just finishing up my 3rd term, 6 years, and I was appointed chairman of a subcommittee my first term. I've been there. This chairman has been there. It's a great subcommittee. It's called the Water Resource and Environment Subcommittee.
Okay.
And we have jurisdiction over the U.S. EPA and the Clean Water Act and the Army Corps of Engineers and a few other areas. But those are the 2 main areas that I have focused on. So fighting the Waters of the United States rule that's been put out by the administration, passed a huge infrastructure bill for our maritime infrastructure, maritime transportation, and in 14, and working on one right now in 16. And that's a bill that what the Corps sets up, what the Corps does, and authorizes all the projects. And so I've been really involved in that. And so the clean water stuff and maritime transportation and flood mitigation and eco restoration.
Oh, well, in fact, I'd like to build on. In fact, one of my questions that we can kind of build on what you just were talking about is, I always want to find out what the plans would be. You know, if you're reelected, what do you want to do over, say, the next 2-4 years or in Congress? So you kind of started on that a little bit. So let's go.
I'd like to still remain chairman of the subcommittee. They've got some 3-term rules. We'll see. That's kind of loose because I've really gotten to understand the issues. I understand where our infrastructure issues are in the maritime transportation. You know, this is jurisdiction of all the locks and dams on the river systems, the Ohio River, the Mississippi, the Intercoastal Waterway, all that, and all the ports in the United States. And with the Panama Canal being just up and running now, the new expanded Panama Canal.
Oh yeah, I heard about that. Yeah.
It's important that we
it allows bigger ships now.
Bigger ships, and they can't all get into our ports fully loaded because the depths aren't where they authorize levels. So I've been working on that. That's important for moving things in and out of the country efficiently.
Right.
But on the regulatory, mostly I really focus on the regulatory side. And this goes from the area I have in my committee, you know, Waters of the United States, but also all these other regulations that, you know, an unelected bureaucracy is promulgating a bunch of rules on American businesses and American people that's really suffocating our economy. And, you know, in a free market system, we need some levels of regulation, but they need to make common and economic sense.
Right.
And we're so far past that. We've got, you know, regulations on top of each other. We've got unelected bureaucrats implementing them. that really don't understand what's going on. And I talked to the business people in my 7th Congressional District and around the country. They just said, it's just hard to make any money. And so I think if we really have real common sense regulatory reform, we just really unleash this economy along then with real tax reform, and this economy will really take off. And we really need to grow this economy to get out of this hole we're in with the massive debt
Right,
that we have.
and as a business owner myself, I can relate to what you're talking about with regulations because I've owned the same business for 16 years.
Well,
and
Larry,
you can see
I
how
have a
they-
simple litmus test for you. When a regulation's coming across your desk, something you're going to have to, from the federal government, you're going to have to, comply to. It'd be nice if you could read that and say, this makes sense. We probably should be doing this versus why the heck we have to do this?
Right.
And it's always the latter.
Right.
And so this, just bring some common sense to this.
Right, and don't set all these traps so that the small business owners don't have to go to all these webinars and try to figure out all the nuances.
Oh yeah,
and get caught in it.
The bigger businesses, the big corporations, they hire a whole host of lawyers and accountants
To figure it
and
out.
figure it all out. But the smaller, medium, and smaller sized businesses, it comes right out of their bottom line, and it makes them hard for them to compete. And it's our smaller businesses that really create the jobs in this country.
Right.
And hopefully they grow up to be bigger businesses.
Right.
But in this regulatory and tax climate in this country, it's hard for them to do that.
Right, exactly. Let's talk a little bit about your background and what qualifications you brought. In fact, I know you've already been in Congress,
Yeah.
so I've kind of proven yourself there already. But what is it about your background that,
Well, I think,
that you feel
I
apply to the job there?
when I graduated from college, I worked at the OARDC down here in Worcester in the ag department, and then I bought my first farm in 1975 and went out on my own in 1978. So I've been self-employed. I like to say I've been self-employed from 1978 to 2003 when I got the soft government job when I was state rep.
Great.
But so I understand, what businesses have to go through, what you have to do to, I had employees, and all that you have to do to survive
Right.
and prosper and grow your businesses. And then my other side, I was former president of the Loudonville Farmers Equity, Holmes County Water Supervisor, Conservation Supervisor, obviously president of the Ohio Farm Bureau, the largest agricultural association in the state. And so I got a lot of public policy experience there. And like I said earlier, if you don't like where I'm at, blame Farm Bureau, because that's really where I got the public policy experience.
that's
My
where
business
your that's your
experience,
roots.
and then I was on there was a lot of businesses we were involved in too, in the Farm Bureau and association, so federation.
Yeah, so kind of your combination of business experience, agriculture experience, and then public service.
And then not to mention, I've been married to the same woman, Jody, for 40 years, and we raised 3 kids, and so I think having that family experience is very important too.
Right. Okay. People often say that, Washington's broke. You see certain, how do you fix it? You're there. What do you see as the type of things that have to happen to change that perception?
Washington is definitely broke.
Right.
And, I like to say Washington's a great place to visit, but don't move there. It's way too expensive. People live in this bubble. And you see it in the bureaucracy. The bureaucracy's just grown. Now, we've been successful since we took over the House in January 2011 and I came in, cutting what I call discretionary spending. That's the spending that funds the federal agencies and defense.
Right.
It's $435 billion less today than what it was when I came into office.
Oh.
And that's a significant cut because it was like a little over 1.4 trillion. Now it's around $1 trillion.
Yeah.
So that's a real cut. Before when Washington talked about cutting spending, they were always talking about cutting the growth in spending. Cutting the Christmas list.
Right.
And so, but we've got to. I've said so. I ran in 2010, and I think it's still true today. I know it's still true today. We have to have our fiscal house in order.
Yeah.
The federal government needs to be taking, less than 20% of the economy. 19.5% is historical numbers. We get as high as 25% of, taking the GDP, gross
Right.
domestic product, to fund the federal government. That's too high. It's taking too much money out of your pocket.
Right.
As a businessman, you can't invest, and then the borrowing money just takes too much out of the economy. And then like I said, common sense regulatory reform, real tax reform. Let's lower those rates. Let's get more money in your pocket because you know how to use your money better than the bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. And then I've always said before, an energy policy in 2010, and what's happened in the energy sector, we've had an energy renaissance in this country, and it's all done by the private sector on state and private lands, in spite of what maybe the president says.
Right.
And they've done such a great job. We're enjoying low gasoline prices, but we also have a lot of job loss because of it. So we need to get some equilibrium in there. But I think our oil and gas producers in the country, we're the #1 producers in the world. we're going to be the most efficient, and we're going to be very competitive. And we get through this market adjustment, I think we'll be in a good position. But I think if you keep our fiscal house in order,
Yeah.
you know, get these regulations under control, you know, that's repeal and replace Obamacare, let's get the EPA under control, a whole host of things like that. Repeal Dodd-Frank that's killing our local community banks.
Right,
Just
right.
terrible what's happening there. And real tax reform, this economy takes off, and we can see growth of 3, 4, 5, even 6% GDP growth, and not this stagnant 1% growth.
Right. And that was one thing I wanted to ask you is what would you see your priorities going forward? But it sounds like
The
that list you
priority,
just, one
the
you just
priority
talked about
is to
would-
grow this economy,
Yeah.
get this economy going, and our number one priority of the federal government is our national security, our national defense.
Right.
And I'd say our economy and our national security is interwoven, because when you have a strong, vibrant economy, it provides the resources to provide for a strong national defense, and it also provides resources for our infrastructure and the things that people expect from the federal government.
Right. It gives you a base.
It gives you a base, and we can't borrow our way out of this mess. We can't cut our way out of this mess. We got to be fiscally responsible, but cutting alone won't do it. We got to grow the economy. And we
Right.
got to get more resources coming in. And I'm really concerned about our national security right now. We're kind of like, I like to say, we're kind of like, I think in the 1930s, when the United States took a kind of an isolationist position, thought the oceans were big,
Yeah.
and we created a vacuum in the world, and you saw what happened. Dictators come to power, and we're seeing that. We're seeing Putin in Russia test us. We're seeing the Chinese test us in the South China Sea. We got the young kid, I call him the young crazy kid in North Korea.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the
Kim Jong-un,
Iranians,
yeah.
I mean, and then of course ISIS and the terrorists, all the Islamic, radical Islamic organizations. You
Yeah,
know,
it seems like the world's a smaller place
it's
now.
definitely a
Like you said,
smaller
the
place,
oceans
and
don't
we're really a
protect
threat.
you.
But America has to be a leader. We can't be the policeman, but America has to be a leader. And our allies are asking us, when we talk to our leaders around the world, our friends, they're asking us, where's the United States? Where are you? What are you going to, you know, they can't trust us anymore. They don't have confidence
Right.
in us. So we got to restore that confidence in the world, and also the confidence to business people like you, to willing to risk capital, knowing that they're not going to be covered up with red tape and
Right.
bureaucracy, and you have a chance. You know, we don't guarantee that you can be successful, but at least you'll have an opportunity to chase your dreams.
Yeah, and you were talking about the slow growth, and sometimes that worries me. As you see, we've had so many years now in a row of very slow GDP growth, and
Yeah, it's
do
the
you
worst
think we can
economic recovery in modern times.
Right? Do you think we have the ability to do better?
Oh, we do. I think a lot of people are holding back because they need to have certainty coming out of Washington, D.C. to provide confidence to risk their capital, to invest their capital. And people are holding back. I think businesses are holding back. I think what they've done, you know, over a period of time, you have to do certain things. You just can't live what I call living off depreciation, or
Right.
you know, because after a while, if you don't reinvest, it'll catch up with you.
Exactly.
And so there's been a little bit of that and some reinvestment, but there hasn't been a lot of the really, you know, enthusiasm or excitement to go after, because they're holding back because
Everyone
they're
seems to
just
be
not
holding on,
sure
yeah.
what's going to happen when you look at a $19 trillion plus deficit, debt, and deficits, you know, we're over $1 trillion. We got it back to 400 billion. Now it's going up back to
Yeah,
600
the
billion.
projections show it going
And the
back
projections
up.
because of one of the baby boomers. And the worst, the issue we really need to address is how do we address this long-term issue? And it's really on the healthcare side. It's Medicare, Medicaid, and Obamacare.
Right.
That's what's really going through
All
the
the
roof.
entitlement
All the
programs,
entitlement
yeah.
programs. And you know, if we get this economy going and reform these programs so they work right for the new demographics that we have, I think, you know, we have an obligation to make sure those programs are there. You know,
Right.
we need to provide a safety net, help people, give them a hand up, not just a hand out. And one of the things we're talking about now, working on, if we're successful in November, is how do we address poverty? You know, in this country, when President Johnson declared a war on poverty, we spent trillions of dollars. We haven't moved the needle one bit.
Right.
And I would even argue we've created a culture in this country, we disincentivize work.
Right.
And so we need to help these people that want to work, that can work, get to that first rung on the ladder, move up that ladder. When they move up, they gradually lose some of their benefits, but they don't lose them all at once, because right now, if they lose them all and the math doesn't work,
Right,
they can't.
give them a stepping stone
They
so
can't
that
get on
they
that first
can
rung of the
aspire
economic ladder.
to move up,
And you
yeah.
know, I think it's, you know, it's all about, you know, faith, family, community, and a meaningful job. If you're
Right.
missing one of those, you're missing something.
Right. I hear you on that. We talked about a lot of different things here. One thing I wanted to come back to, though, was do you see the opponent who's running against you, how would you differentiate yourself, or how do you think your leadership differs from the other
I actually have
candidate
two
running?
opponents this time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I don't never mention my opponents, but I mentioned that there is two in the ballot. You'll see there's three in the ballot, myself and my two opponents. I've met the Democrat. He seems like a very nice guy. He's my age, retired police officer. But I see on his website he seems very liberal. He thinks that the government should be doing more, and he's advocating, I believe, for more spending and higher taxes. And I think that's just more spending and higher taxes equals recession.
Right.
And so that's why I think we have a major disagreement. On the independent person, I don't really know where he's just out there.
Okay. Okay. Well, we covered a lot of topics here this afternoon, and I wanted to see if there's anything that you also wanted to tell our viewers, things that we didn't cover in the questions.
Well, I
things that are
think we
important
kind of
to
covered it,
you.
but I guess this is to reemphasize. I think I have full confidence in the American people. We really need to unleash the American spirit and innovation again and entrepreneurship, and they've really been, in a chokehold here.
Yeah.
With the regulatory environment and the tax climate. We're not competitive in the tax area with our global competitors.
Right.
And there's some things we could do to make us competitive, so our business can compete in the world global market, because it is a world global market.
Yeah, you have so many companies going offshore now.
Yeah,
because of the
well,
better tax.
that's actually created by our tax policy.
Right, exactly.
It's called inversions. It's a bad policy. It's policy that I know some people say they're being unpatriotic, leaving the country. Well, they do have a fiduciary due diligence responsibility to the stockholders, and it's the government's, in my opinion, bad policy that's creating that inversion.
Yes.
And we can change that policy, and trillions of dollars will flow back. And when you have that kind of capital infusion into our economy here domestically, it just takes off, because you have to have capital to grow your businesses, to create jobs.
Exactly.
And this so I have full confidence in the American people. If we get the right policies right, the right public policies right, we really unleash the American spirit again. And it's really been, in a chokehold. And so, when we do that, we also bring in the resources for our national security, because I'm really concerned about that.
Right.
And now we see with the Supreme Court issues, we can't be legislating from the bench. We need to, your elected representatives need to be making the public policy and the laws, because you can talk to your elected representatives. You can't really talk to the Supreme Court justices.
Right, and they're
supposed
in that position
they're
for
there.
life,
They're
so.
there to interpret the intent of the Constitution, and not legislate from the bench. And so we don't need any activist courts. We have too much of that in the federal judicial system now. So it's really important, I think, that come out. I appreciate the support from my constituents here, and look forward to representing them in the United States Congress for another term, and working to get this country turned around, so every American can chase their dreams. And like I say, we don't guarantee success. We shouldn't guarantee success, but everybody ought to have an opportunity.
Opportunity, yeah.
And you don't have an opportunity when the federal government's being heavy-handed, and bureaucrats are
Holding you back.
And so it's really important. But I'm confident we can still turn around. And I think, you look back at our 240-year history, generations have had challenges,
Mm-hmm.
And every time, at some point, the American people raise to that challenge, and we do great things. I think we are at that point in our history today,
Right.
again, and we can do great things, and make sure, grow this economy, grow the opportunities, and respect around the world. And we're stronger, when the United States is stronger, the world is a safer place.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
right now, it's a very dangerous place, and we just saw that again
Just
today
this weekend.
with the latest terrorist attacks here in the United States. So,
Right.
So I appreciate the support, and I look forward to serving the people of Ohio's Congressional 7th District in another term.
Great. Well, Congressman Bob Gibbs, we're happy that you came in today. Thanks for taking time. I know that your schedule is very busy, so we appreciate it, and best of luck in the coming election.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
Take care.
You too. Well, I'd like to welcome Roy Rich, who is running for U.S. Congress, Ohio District 7. Roy Rich was born and raised in Fairport Harbor, a mile square, a working class village on Lake Erie. The son of a blue-collar union factory worker, he started his work life as a paperboy at age 12. At age 14, he worked in a marine and boat store, sweeping floors and cleaning boats. Roy worked in retail, hardware, and factory jobs prior to finding his life's work in law enforcement. In police work, Roy worked in both country and small town departments before joining the Cleveland Police Department. In the Cleveland PD, he ascended through the ranks and has finished his career as the commander of Cleveland's largest and most challenging district, where he was in charge of 270 officers and responsible for protecting 117,000 citizens. During his time on the Cleveland Police Department, he was a field training officer, a sector supervisor in basic patrol, ran vice and strike force units, and was an investigative sergeant in the inspections unit. Roy also held union office positions in both police unions. As a patrol officer, he was an executive board trustee in the Cleveland Police Patrolmen's Association. Later, after promotion, he served as vice president and president of the Supervisors Union, the Fraternal Order of Police, Lodge 8. In addition, Roy has served as a director in the Cleveland Police Department Credit Union's Board of Directors for the past 18 years and was recently re-elected to his 7th three-year term. He currently co-chairs both the Investment Committee and the Development Committee. On the personal side, Roy is 62, lives in Eaton Township in Lorain County, and is married. He and his wife Karen will celebrate their 22nd anniversary this fall. He has one son, Jeff, who is married and lives in Arizona. Roy's hobbies include cowboy action shooting, golf, and playing the guitar. So, Roy Rich, I'd like to welcome you here
Hi.
today, and
good to
thank
meet
you
you.
for coming out today and giving us a chance to learn more about yourself and why you're running for this office.
Thank you.
So, for the viewers at home, let's start about the office itself a little bit. Can you tell me what the role of you see the role of the congressman as being like when they get to Washington? What is their role?
Well, a congressman is a legislator. They make laws, rules. They determine things that lead to the future of the area they represent. I see the role of a representative as representing the people within their district.
Okay.
Not corporations, not the 1%, not special interests, but it's the U.S. House of Representatives, not House of Corporations. So we have to be clear that the job, when you take that oath of office, that job is to represent the people within the boundaries of your district. And then, in general, the United States populace as a whole.
Okay. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're running for this office?
Well, for too long, it seems as though Congress has been controlled by large special interests. It's been controlled by big businesses that don't pay taxes. Mm-hmm. Now, most corporations pay their tax. They pay their fair share, they pay their employees, they do what they're supposed to. But the Verizons of the world, the GEs, the Boeings, those companies have been able to craft legislation or have legislation passed which allows them not to pay any taxes. Now, when a huge corporation that is largely profitable doesn't pay their taxes or their fair share, somebody has to. That's the working class. Everybody from the working poor, and I hate to use the word poor, but the working class that's making minimum wage on up through, the folks making $50,000, $80,000 a year, they're the ones that are being put upon to cover those taxes that aren't being paid. Somebody needs to stand up in Washington and say, enough. You can't buy me. You can't give campaign donations and get me to pass legislation. The only legislation I'll pass is legislation that's going to benefit the people of the district.
Right. Okay. What kind of experience and special skills and expertise are you bringing to this position should you get elected?
Well, I spent a long time as a police officer, which is an arbitrator in general in most situations. Yes, there are times you're chasing bad guys and you're wrestling to the ground, you have a physical end, the stuff we see on TV. But a lot of it's mediating disputes. In addition to that, I was fortunate enough to be elected as a union official, and during that time, I was able to arbitrate contracts, negotiate settlements, arbitrations, disciplines, all of those types of things. So those are skills that are directly relatable to being in Congress because it's a negotiation. It's trying to craft the best legislation you can and looking for all of those things that might cause problems down the road, the unintended consequences.
Right.
And a good back and forth and compromise can lead to us having better legislation for everybody.
Because you have all these different parties with different interests, and you need to pull them together.
You need to pull them together.
Right.
Exactly. And that, on that end, that's what I bring from that section. I spent my entire adult life in public service, in service to the people. My last assignment was as a commander. I had 117,000 citizens whose physical safety and welfare was my responsibility.
Right.
I see this more as economic responsibility toward the folks in this district. There are 760,000, someone in that neighborhood, men, women, and children in this district.
Right.
And we have to look out for their health, their welfare, their overall economic health too. And that's job of a legislator. To that end, I've been on the Cleveland Police Credit Union as a director on the board of directors for 18 years. If you think back at how long ago that was late 90s.
Right.
We've been through booms and busts
yeah.
during that time. So I've seen the banking industry up close, and I've seen what happens, and I've seen us go up, and I've seen us go down, and I've seen us recover, slowly but recovering. And so I have some background in the financial end too.
Okay.
That, to me, gives me a rounded background. I see the job as a representative as an extension of what I've done before.
In your public service,
In my
the police
public service.
departments, and also
Exactly.
the credit unions. Okay.
Yes.
All right. A lot of polls will show that most voters don't think government works or doesn't work right. What would you do to fix the underlying structures and systems that seem to be broken if you got to Washington?
Well, that's such a huge question. But let's start with what I consider to be the tree from which all the poisonous branches grow. That's campaign finance.
Mm-hmm.
We need to do something about campaign finance. When a candidate has well over $1 million in his campaign account, that may not mean a lot. If there are donors like donate to me, the $35 here, $50 there, that's what people can feel they can afford. That's one thing. But when you start seeing the maximum amounts and you start seeing the special interests and the PACs and the, an example would be beet sugar industry from Michigan donating to a congressman here, what do they want for that? Now, where I come from, if someone comes in your office and they give you a check for a campaign donation, they walk out and turn around and walk back in and go, by the way, I have legislation here. That to me is
Right.
bribery.
Right.
It's not bribery according to the way it's set up now, but it sure as heck should be. Citizens United was one of the worst decisions that's ever been handed down by a Supreme Court in the history of this nation. That allows rampant donations by special interests to and big business and big agribusiness and to congressmen. And if you think they're not going to be beholden to people who give them huge donations, then I would have to question thought processes there. And I didn't mean you, but I mean in general. I think we all can see the connective structure.
Yeah, and I can relate to the beet sugar thing because we have a candy factory here in Medina. So we see it on the other end how it inflates sugar prices that we have to pay. So I understand where you...
Serious issues. You know, we talk about Social Security a lot on the campaign trail. That's another huge issue. We need to take a look at Social Security. We need to shore it up and we need to enhance it. Now, shoring it up, we're going to have to raise the cap where we stop paying Social Security. If you make $118,000 a year, anything over that, you don't pay Social Security on as it sits today.
Right.
We need to raise that cap. It should have been being raised equally all along the way, incrementally, but like the minimum wage, it hasn't been brought up to where it needs to. So we need to adjust that. The second thing, it's just common sense and simple math, is a comprehensive jobs program. We need a comprehensive jobs program to address our crumbling infrastructure. Flint, Michigan, Sebring, Ohio, which is just outside the 7th District,
Right.
are just the tip of the iceberg. As we continue to have to filter water with more and more chemicals, we're going to start stripping all of these pipes of the lead that we didn't know was as harmful when it was put in these pipes. Most of our water systems went in between 1910 and 1920. So unless they've been completely replaced, we may have some problems.
Right.
We need to do that. We have bridges that are supposed to have been replaced 20 years ago. They have a lifespan of 30 to 50 years, and we're on 60 and 70 on a lot of those bridges.
Right.
With that program, with a comprehensive jobs program, you also have to require U.S. manufactured steel. You have to require U.S. Supplies for anything you might want to make, whether it's nuts and bolts, and I'm even a proponent of requiring that when equipment is replaced, big, heavy, earth-moving equipment, that type of thing, that there should be a preference given to U.S.-made equipment.
Okay.
Now, to get back to Social
Yeah, you mean
Security,
things like
because
that,
that's
government.
what that is. How do we tie this together? The way to fix Social Security is good-paying jobs. 15% of, if one person is working and they're working for a company, they pay 7.5%, and the company pays 7.5%. If you're a farmer, you're paying the full 15.
Okay.
If you're an independent shop owner, you're paying the full 15. If you're a lawyer and you're independent, you are paying the full 15%. 15% of $30 an hour is a whole lot more going into Social Security than 15% of $8 an hour, which is another reason I'm solidly opposed against the right to work for less legislation.
Mm-hmm.
So
What are you opposed to? The right to?
it's called right to work legislation, but I call it right to work for less. Because in every
and
state where they have right to work
like Indiana or
legislation,
Michigan, yeah.
it's Indiana, Michigan, their overall wages are about $4 an hour less.
Okay.
That's the kind of thing that we need to look at. How we get our economy going is good paying jobs. And I'm not talking about make work. I'm talking about things we need to get done. Mm-hmm. We need to make sure we don't have bridge collapses. We need to make sure we have safe water systems, our road systems. Everything that we do here in this country that are things that we need to take care of will feed the economy. And those things feed the businesses around where we're doing the bridges. The businesses the small mom and pop delis and
Right.
small stands where they make the hamburgers and hot dogs
Mm-hmm.
and that type of thing.
Okay. What makes your leadership in this position different from the other candidate running for this office, and why?
Well, I'm not big on slamming anybody because that's not my style.
Yeah.
My leadership comes from having been a supervisor of people who carry guns for quite a few years. My leadership is the kind that doesn't back down from standing up for the right thing, but also being reasonable to have reasonable discussions and reasonable compromise. I believe we can have reasonable compromise without compromising core principles.
Right. Okay. What are a few examples of the priorities you would pursue in office to make government business friendly?
Well, I've already sounded like I'm anti-business, and I have to clarify that I'm definitely not anti-business. If big business can come in and sit across a desk from me and tell me how they're going to make millions and billions of dollars, and also tell me how they're going to employ lots of people in good-paying jobs with good benefits, I'm all for them. We obviously need business in this country.
Right.
We have lots of small businesses. We need to make sure that the Small Business Administration is doing everything they can to help businesses be successful. People with good business plans coming in and taking care of them. We need to make sure that everybody's on the right playing field. Everybody's on a level playing field.
Right. What if the big or small business said that part of what their obstacle is overregulation or overtaxation? What?
We need to look at regulations, but as we've seen with EpiPens, as we've seen with cancer drugs, lack of regulation can cause a serious problem. Nobody is thinking that, except for the people who are, on those boards of directors or those people who are benefiting from those price gouging drugs, that we shouldn't have regulation, and that's okay. In this district, in my area of it, to give you the best example, my area covers a lot of farmland, not only in Medina County, but Huron and Richland and Ashland
Right.
and Shockton and Holmes, and it's a 10-county district. I've heard from farmers about the EPA, and when I tell them I believe in having air to breathe and water to drink, but I also believe we don't go after the small farmer who may be contributing in a negligible way. An example, and this was what I was told by a trustee who happens to be Democrat too, from Tuscarawas County. He told me how the EPA had come in and there was where the farmers have their 500-gallon tank to do their equipment. There was a spill on the ground, and of course they took samples and they cited them. If you had all of the farms in all of the 10 counties and they had the same equal spill on the ground, it still would have a negligible impact on the environment.
Right.
I would like to see us redirect those efforts toward those things that are actually causing our algae blooms in the lake. Farmers get a bad rap, but boy, I'll tell you, every farmer I've ever met is very frugal. They're not putting down fertilizer so it can
they don't want to turn off anyway.
run off into the into the streams and fields, or from the fields and into the streams, and they want to make sure that it's staying there. And I see the role of the EPA as being more collaborative, less punitive, and I would advocate for that in that regard. As far as overall business, we have to be careful when we're addressing business concerns as far as loans and tax breaks and all of those type of things, to make sure that everybody has a fair shot at getting those benefits.
Okay.
My wife owns a small business, and she has a small business loan, and it helped her. And so I understand close up the kind of things that it takes. When we start talking about regulations, we also have to look at the history of regulations and those particular regulations. Are those things still valid today? And if they are, we need to keep them in place. And if they're not, we need to adjust them. Just like we have adjusted what we believe the Constitution means as a living, breathing document, I think we have to do the same when we're looking at regulations.
Okay.
If you look on the books, you can usually find some laws in small towns, and even in the old city of Cleveland ledgers, you could find laws that you would say, why would you need this? There was actually a law in Cleveland about pea shooters. So not a big issue here in 2016.
That just stayed on the books.
But it's been on the books since 38 or 40. So those are the kind of, that's my position on regulations. I'm not against regulations, but they also have to be for a purpose and have to serve that purpose.
Well, our time is almost up. Is there anything else you wanted the viewers to know that we didn't have a chance to cover?
Wow. I don't know. We covered quite a
Yes,
bit in
we
a
did.
short period of time.
Yes, we did.
I just would like the viewers to know that I'm a guy who will stand up for the people. I believe in my oath of office. I've taken several in different, as I went through the ranks in the police department. I will represent everybody within the district. I will advocate strongly. I may not win every fight, but I will be in every fight that needs to be fought. And if there are reasonable solutions, I will find them. I'm not afraid of hard work. I did it my entire career, and now I want to do it for the people of 7th District.
Okay. Well, Roy Rich, on behalf of the Medina Chamber, I'd like to thank you for coming out today. Wish you luck in the coming election, and thank you for your time.
Well, remember, in November, switch to Rich.
Okay. Well, thank
Thanks.
you.